A single billionaire father carries his unconscious daughter to the hospital, but freezes when he looks at the doctor. The car spun out in the hospital parking lot. Callum Hayes didn't even bother locking the doors. He just ripped Sadie from the back seat and ran. His arms trembled as he carried the small, motionless body of his 5-year-old daughter. "Help!" His voice echoed down the emergency hallway. "My daughter isn't waking up." The automatic doors slid open with a mechanical sound that felt eternal. The polished floor reflected the fluorescent lights as Callum sprinted forward, desperate. Sadie looked too pale, breathing too slowly. Something was terribly wrong. A nurse appeared, running. What happened? She was playing in the backyard and suddenly collapsed. "She can't wake up." The words tumbled out. "She's been like this for 20 minutes. Let's go to pediatrics. Now." Callum followed the nurse down corridors, smelling of disinfectant. His boots clicked on the smooth floor. Sadie remained lifeless in his arms, her breathing weak but steady. He tried not to think the worst. The pediatric ward was busy, children crying, worried parents, doctors rushing in and out. The nurse pointed to a gurney. "Put her here. The doctor is on the way." Callum gently laid Sadie down, brushing aside strands of her brown hair matted to her sweat-damp forehead. Even unconscious, she seemed too small to be there. "Sadie, Daddy's here, okay?" He held her cold little hand. "You're going to be all right." Footsteps rushed closer. Callum lifted his eyes, and the world stopped. Marin Blake stood at the entrance to the room, wearing a white coat and her hair tied back in a ponytail. For a second, neither of them moved. Time froze between them. 5 years. 5 years since she had left. Marin blinked first, composing herself with the practiced calm of a doctor. She stepped toward the gurney, but Callum blocked her path. "No." His voice was low, dangerous. "It won't be you." "Callum, No." He crossed his arms. "Get someone else, anyone." Marin looked down at Sadie in the gurney, then back at him. A flash of something crossed her face. Pain, maybe, but her voice remained steady. "I'm the pediatrician on duty. There's no other available right now." "Then I'll wait." She can't wait. Reality hit him like a punch. Callum looked at his daughter, so small and fragile, then back to Marin. His options evaporated as quickly as his patience. "You don't even have the right to say her name." Marin swallowed hard but didn't back down. "I know." She stepped up to the gurney, and Callum had to step aside, even against all his will. Marin placed her stethoscope in her ears and leaned over Sadie. "How was she before she passed out?" The question was directed at Callum, but Marin didn't take her eyes off the little girl. Professional, distant, as if they were strangers. Playing like normal, chasing the dog, laughing, eating a snack. Callum clenched his fists. Then she dropped out of nowhere. She didn't hit her head. She didn't bump into anything. Marin nodded, checking Sadie's reflexes with a small flashlight. The girl stirred a bit, groaning softly. "Sadie, can you hear me?" Sadie's eyes opened slowly, confused. She blinked a few times, trying to focus. "Daddy?" "I'm here, sweetheart." Callum squeezed her hand immediately. "How do you feel?" "Dizzy." Sadie turned her head and saw Marin. "Who are you?" Marin hesitated for a fraction of a second. Callum saw the exact moment she chose her words. "I'm Dr. Marin. I'm going to take care of you, okay?" Sadie nodded weakly. There was no recognition in her eyes. Of course there wasn't. She was just a baby when Marin had left. "My head hurts." "I know. We'll figure out what's going on." Marin turned to the nurse. "I need a full blood count and a CT scan." Callum watched Marin every move as she examined Sadie. There was something unsettling in her competence, in the way her hands moved confidently over the girl's body, as if she had every right to be there. "Sadie, I'm going to press on your tummy now, okay? Tell me if it hurts." "Okay." Marin pressed gently on the girl's abdomen, watching for reactions. Sadie didn't complain. She only stared at the doctor's face with innocent curiosity. "You have pretty eyes." Sadie's voice was weak but clear. Marin froze for a second. Callum saw her hand tremble before she continued the exam. "Thank you, sweetie." They look just like mine. The silence that followed was deafening. Callum felt his stomach drop. Marin continued the exam as if nothing had happened, but he saw her breathing change. "Do you have a family, doctor?" Sadie asked, seeming to gather a bit more energy. "Sadie, let the doctor work," Callum interrupted. "All right," Marin said softly. "I like it when kids ask questions." "So, do you have one?" Marin finished checking Sadie's pulse before answering. "It's complicated." "Why complicated?" "Sometimes life doesn't happen the way we plan." Sadie frowned, trying to understand. "My daddy says the same thing about my mommy." Callum felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. Marin froze completely. "She had to go away when I was little," Sadie continued. "Innocent, to work far away. But my daddy says she loved me very much." The girl's words hung in the air like bombs ready to explode. Marin was pale, but maintained her professional composure. "I'm sure she did," she said in a slightly hoarse voice. "Do you know mothers who had to leave their kids?" The question was innocent but cut like a blade. Marin glanced quickly at Callum, then back to Sadie. "I know a few. Do they get sad?" "Very sad." "Is that why you look sad when you look at me?" Sadie's observation hit the room like a lightning bolt. Callum saw Marin swallow hard, fighting to keep her professional mask. "I care about all my little patients," Marin finally said, "but with me it's different." "I feel it." Before anyone could respond, the nurse returned with the test results. "The lab and radiology are ready." "Thank you." Marin snapped back into focus. "Let's go." "Sadie, first we'll do some blood tests." "Will it hurt?" "Just a quick pinch." "Are you brave?" "My daddy says I am." "Then it won't be a problem." The trip to the lab was tense. Sadie walked slowly between the two adults, still dizzy. Callum noticed how Marin instinctively offered support when the girl wobbled, then immediately withdrew when she realized what she was doing. "Dr. Marin?" Sadie asked as they waited. "Yes?" "Why doesn't my daddy like you?" The direct question made Callum choke. Marin was speechless for a few seconds. "Sometimes adults have complicated stories." "What kind of stories?" "Sadie," Callum warned. "All right," Marin said. "It's natural for her to want to understand." "You two knew each other before?" Marin looked at Callum, silently asking permission. He shook his head almost imperceptibly. "We did," Marin said carefully. "And did you fight?" "Not exactly fight." "Then why does he get mad when he looks at you?" Sadie's persistence was chipping away at everyone's defenses. Callum saw Marin struggle for words. "Sometimes people hurt each other without meaning to," she said finally. "Did you hurt my daddy?" The silence stretched out. When Marin answered, her voice was low. "Yes, I hurt him." "Sadie Hayes," the lab tech called, saving everyone from more questions. During the blood draw, Sadie behaved like a little warrior. Marin stood by her, holding her free hand and telling a story about a mischievous dog to distract her. "Max is mischievous too," Sadie said when it was over. "He ate my shoe yesterday." "Really?" "Just chewed it." "Daddy got mad, but then he laughed. Dogs do that." "Do you have a dog?" "No, I live in a small apartment." "Alone?" "Alone." Sadie reflected on that for a moment. "Must be lonely." The simple remark struck Marin hard. Callum saw her look away. "Sometimes." "Why don't you get a family?" "Sadie." Callum tried to interrupt again. "It's not that simple, sweetie," Marin replied. "Because of the complicated story with my daddy?" The question came out so innocent and direct that it left everyone speechless. Sadie watched them with genuine curiosity, waiting for an explanation neither adult could give. "Let's get the CT now." Marin changed the subject. In the radiology room, Sadie had to change clothes. Callum helped, noticing how fragile she looked in the hospital gown. "Daddy, I'm scared." "Of what, sweetheart?" "What if there's something really wrong with me?" The question broke his heart. Callum knelt down in front of his daughter. "There won't be anything we can't fix, okay? Daddy's right here, and Dr. Marin." Callum looked at Marin, who had stepped back to give them privacy. "She's here too. She seems nice, even though you don't like her." "Why do you think she's nice?" "By the way she looks at me." Like how you look at me. Sadie's observation was unsettling in its simplicity. Callum didn't know how to handle that information. Sadie Hayes, the technician called. During the scan, Callum stayed in the control room, watching the images appear on the monitor. He didn't understand any of it, but he tried to memorize every detail. How's she behaving? Marin asked softly. Good. Asking too many questions, as always. She's very smart. Yes. Too smart sometimes. They sat in silence, watching Sadie cooperate with the technician. The girl followed instructions seriously, clearly determined to be brave. Callum, Marin said softly. No. I just wanted to say that. I don't want to hear it. She's well cared for. You've done an amazing job. The unsolicited comment made Callum turn toward her. You have no right to comment on how I raise my daughter. I know, but nothing. You chose to leave her life. You have no more say. Marin bowed her head, accepting the reprimand. But when Sadie waved at them through the glass, Marin waved back automatically. When the scan ended, Sadie was more tired. How was it, sweetheart? Odd. The machine makes a lot of noise. But you were very brave, Marin said. Thank you. Are you going to see pictures of my brain? I will, to make sure everything is okay. And then, can I go home? Marin exchanged a look with Callum. We'll see what the images show first. Back in the pediatric room, waiting for the results was tense. Sadie napped on the gurney, finally relaxed after hours of movement. Callum and Marin sat in awkward silence. Dr. Blake? A technician appeared with an envelope. Thank you. Marin stepped aside to examine the images. Callum watched her expression change gradually. First concentration, then concern, then something like controlled alarm. She made a quick call, speaking quietly to someone. Callum couldn't hear, but he saw her hang up and take several deep breaths. Daddy? Sadie woke up. Can I have water? Of course, sweetheart. Marin brought her a cup with a straw. Sadie drank gratefully. Thank you. You have soft hands. Thank you, sweetie. Like my mommy had. At least that's how I imagine. Marin almost dropped the cup. Callum saw her hands tremble. How do you imagine they were? Gentle. That didn't hurt. That made me feel safe. Sadie's words floated in the air, loaded with meaning. Marin closed her eyes for a moment. I'm sure they were. Dr. Blake. Another doctor appeared at the door. Can you come speak with me? Marin nodded and stepped away. They spoke quietly, but Callum saw their serious expressions. Daddy, are they talking about me? Probably just discussing the tests. Am I sick? The direct question caught him off guard. We don't know yet, sweetheart. That's why we did the tests. But you look worried. I can see. Callum sighed. No point lying to Sadie. She always noticed. I'm a little worried, yes. But will I be okay? We'll do everything we can to make it so. Sadie nodded, accepting the answer. When Marin returned, her expression was carefully controlled. I need to talk to you, she said to Callum. Right here. Callum, I'm not leaving. Marin looked at Sadie, who pretended to be asleep but was clearly listening to everything. The tests show some abnormalities that need investigation. What kind of abnormalities? I need an MRI to get more details, and a consultation with a neurologist. The word neurologist hit like a bomb. Callum felt the floor drop out from under him. Is it serious? Could be. That's why we need more tests. How long will this take? I can get the MRI done later today, but Sadie will need to be admitted. Admitted? For observation and more testing. Sadie opened her eyes. Will I sleep here? You will, sweetie. Marin forced a smile. But your daddy will stay with you. And you? The question caught Marin off guard. I have other patients. But will you visit me? Marin looked to Callum, silently asking permission. If Daddy lets you. Callum wanted to say no, wanted her to disappear. But Sadie looked at him with hope. You can come in the morning, he said reluctantly. Thank you, Daddy. As Marin arranged the admission, Callum was left alone with his worries. Sadie hummed softly, seemingly unconcerned by the gravity of the situation. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart. Dr. Marin likes me. Why do you think that? By the way she looks at me. Like you look at me. Sadie's observation struck Callum like lightning. Because she was right. There was something in the way Marin looked at her that went beyond professionalism, and that scared him more than any medical diagnosis. The hospital room was bathed in soft darkness when Marin pushed the door open quietly. It was past 9 at night, and she expected to find Sadie asleep. Instead, the girl was awake, staring out the window. "Dr. Marin," Sadie whispered, excited but respectful of the night's silence. "You're back. I promised I would come." Marin moved closer to the bed, carrying a folder with test results. "How are you feeling?" "Better. My headache is almost gone." Callum was dozing in the chair next to the bed, exhausted after a day of worry. Marin looked at him for a moment, noticing how even sleeping he seemed tense. "Daddy is very tired," Sadie observed. "He wouldn't eat dinner properly." "And you? Did you eat well?" "A little. The hospital food is weird." Marin smiled, pulling up a chair next to the bed. "It is. But at least you tried." "Dr. Marin, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you work at night too? Shouldn't you be home?" The simple question hit a sensitive spot. Marin adjusted the folder on her lap. "Sometimes doctors have to work different hours to care for patients. But don't you have a family waiting?" "I don't have one. Nobody." "Nobody?" Sadie frowned, processing the information. "That must be very lonely." "Sometimes it is. But now you have patients like me to care for." The innocence of the remark squeezed Marin's heart. "That's true. Can I tell you something?" "You can." Sadie lowered her voice even more, as if sharing a secret. "Since I woke up this morning, I have a strange feeling about you." "What kind of feeling?" "Like I already knew you, or should know you." Marin felt her breath catch. She glanced at Callum, still asleep, then back at Sadie. "Maybe because I talked to you so much today." "It's not that," Sadie shook her head. "It's different. Like you were important somehow." Silence stretched between them. Marin fought the urge to tell everything, to reveal who she really was. "Sadie, do you remember anything from when you were a baby?" "Not much. Some things." "Why?" "Just curious. But I remember feelings, like someone holding me and singing softly." Marin closed her eyes for a moment. She used to sing to Sadie when she was a baby, especially during hard nights. "What kind of music?" "I don't remember the words, just the melody. It was soft, loving." "Your nanny, maybe? Or your daddy?" "Daddy can't sing." Sadie giggled. "He tries that, but it's horrible." Despite the tension, Marin smiled. "Then it must have been someone else." "Yes, someone who loved me very much. I could feel it in their voice." Sadie's words cut deep. Marin had to look away to keep from crying. "Dr. Marin, you okay?" "I am. Just thinking about your tests." "Did they show something bad?" Marin hesitated. It wasn't appropriate to discuss medical results without Callum present, but genuine concern in Sadie's eyes touched her. "I'm still reviewing everything. We'll talk more tomorrow." "But you'll tell me the truth, right? Even if it's bad." Sadie's maturity in her voice impressed Marin. "I will. You deserve to know." "Thank you. I hate when adults lie thinking they're protecting me." "You're very smart for a 5-year-old. Daddy always says that. Says I got it from my mommy." Marin swallowed hard. "He talked about her to you?" "A little. He gets sad when he talks, so I don't ask much." "What did he say?" "That she had to work far away, that it was a hard decision. That she loved me very much." Each word was a stab to Marin's heart. "And you believe it?" "I believe Daddy wouldn't lie about that. But sometimes I get mad at her." "Why?" "For leaving, even if it was for a good reason." Marin forced herself to keep her voice steady. "That's normal to get mad, even when we understand the reasons." "Do you think she thinks of me?" The question shattered Marin's last bit of self-control. A tear slipped out before she could stop it. "I'm absolutely sure she does. Every day." "How can you be sure?" Because mothers always think about their children. no matter where they are. Sadie watched Marin's face closely. You're crying. Just a little. Because of my mommy. Because of many things. Sadie reached out and touched Marin's arm. Don't be sad. I have Daddy, and he takes really good care of me. The simple gesture of comfort broke Marin's heart. He does. You're very lucky. I am. But he'd be happier if it was not just the two of us. Why do you think that? Sometimes I see him looking at complete families with a different face, like he wants something he doesn't have. Sadie's perceptive remark surprised Marin. Would you like to have a bigger family? I don't know, never thought much about it. Sadie paused. But I think I'd like to have a mommy. How do you imagine it would be? Loving. Someone who knows how to braid my hair, who helps me pick pretty clothes. Sadie smiled. And who makes Daddy smile more. Every word was a weight on Marin's chest. All Sadie wanted was exactly what she had given up. Your mommy would have loved doing those things with you. You think so? I'm sure. How can you be sure if you don't know her? Marin realized she was exposing herself too much, because any mother would love to have a daughter like you. Would you? The direct question took Marin by surprise. What? To have a daughter like me? Marin looked at Sadie, her big, curious eyes, hair messy on the pillow, sweet smile even in this tough situation. More than anything in the world. Then why don't you have kids? Because I made mistakes. Mistakes I can't undo. My daddy says everyone makes mistakes. What matters is trying to fix them. And if it's too late to fix them, it's never too late. At least that's what he taught me. Sadie's simple wisdom left Marin speechless. They were silent for a few minutes, just looking at each other. Dr. Marin? Yes? Can I ask you a favor? Sure. Can you stay until I fall asleep? The hospital makes strange noises at night. Marin looked at Callum, still sleeping, then back at Sadie. I can stay a little. Thank you. Sadie settled more comfortably on the pillow but continued watching Marin. Can you tell me a story? What kind of story? Any... Your voice is calming. Marin began to tell a tale about a brave princess who faced dragons to protect her kingdom. Sadie listened intently, asking occasional questions and giggling at the funny parts. Did the princess have a family? Sadie asked. She had a father who loved her very much, but she felt lonely sometimes. Why? Because she had to make tough decisions. And those decisions sometimes hurt people she loved, but she didn't want to hurt them. No, she thought she was doing the right thing. And was she? Marin paused. She thought she was back then, but later realized she might have been wrong. Did she manage to fix it? She's still trying. Sadie nodded, satisfied with the answer. Her eyes began to grow heavy. Dr. Marin, yes, sweetheart. Thank you for taking care of me. You don't need to thank me. I do. I feel like you're doing more than just work. The remark hit Marin hard. Sadie was right. It was far more than work. Go to sleep now. We'll talk more tomorrow. Promise you'll come back? I promise. Sadie finally fell asleep, with a small smile on her face. Marin watched her for a few more minutes, etching every detail into her memory. When she stood to leave, she found Callum awake, watching her with an unreadable expression. How long have you been awake? She whispered. Long enough. They left the room in silence. In the hallway, Callum confronted her. Don't get close to her. You've already done enough. Marin looked at him, seeing all the pain and anger he'd held for 5 years. Maybe, but now I want to do the right thing. The right thing. Callum laughed bitterly. 5 years later. I know it's late. I know I have no right. But she needs medical care and I can provide the best. As a doctor. Only as a doctor. Marin nodded, even though every fiber of her being wanted to disagree. As a doctor. Callum studied her for a moment, as if looking for lies. Don't confuse her. Don't let her get attached to you. I won't. Because when this is all over, you'll leave again, and I won't let her suffer twice. The truth in his words hurt more than Marin expected. I understand. I hope you do. Callum returned to the room, leaving Marin alone in the hallway. She leaned against the wall, finally letting her tears fall, because Callum was right. She had done enough damage. And now, seeing Sadie grown, smart, loving, she realized exactly what she had lost. But she also knew she could no longer run, not this time. Marin arrived at the hospital before 6 in the morning, carrying a cup of coffee that had gone cold during the trip. She couldn't sleep after the conversation with Sadie the night before. Every word the little girl had said echoed in her mind, especially those questions about Mommy. The MRI images were already waiting on her desk. She locked herself in the office and spread the films on the light box, turning on each light one by one. What she saw made her blood run cold. There, right in the center of Sadie's brain, was a complex arteriovenous malformation. The arteries and veins were connected abnormally, creating a dangerous tangle of blood vessels. It was rare, extremely rare, especially in such a young child. "My God," she whispered, stepping closer to the images. The malformation was located in a critical area near structures responsible for movement and speech. Worse yet, there were signs it was already causing pressure, explaining Sadie's fainting. Marin grabbed the phone and called Dr. Harrison, head of neurology. "Harrison, this is Marin Blake. I need you to come see an MRI, urgent." "What time is it, Blake?" "It's 6:15, a 5-year-old with a complex AVM. Her tone must have conveyed the gravity of the situation because Harrison didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way." 15 minutes later, Dr. Harrison was huddled over the images, frowning. "This is complicated, Blake." "Very complicated." "I know. The location is terrible. Any mistake could cause paralysis or permanent cognitive damage. Or death," Marin added grimly. "We can't wait. The pressure signs are already clear." "I agree. We need to operate as soon as possible." Harrison turned to her. "I'll call Dr. Chen. He's our best pediatric neurosurgeon." "Chen is on vacation. He doesn't return until next week." "Shit." Harrison ran his hand through his hair. "What about Dr. Santos?" "Santos is good with routine cases. This isn't routine." Harrison studied the images again, then looked at Marin. "Do you have experience with pediatric AVMs?" "I do. I did a neurosurgery residency before specializing in pediatrics. I worked with Dr. Mitchell in Boston for 2 years." "Mitchell? He's a legend in this field. I learned a lot from him. I was involved in over 50 AVM surgeries, 15 of them in kids. But you haven't operated in 3 years, since you came here." Marin glanced at the images again. Her training kicked in automatically, visualizing each step, the risks, possible approaches. "I'm the most qualified available right now. This is an extremely complex case. I know, but we can't wait a week. Look at the swelling. She could have another episode any moment, and the next one could be fatal." Harrison studied the images more closely. "You're right. The edema is increasing. If this is the only way to treat her, let it be with my hands." Her words carried a determination she hadn't felt in years. Harrison watched her intently. "Is there something more in this case, Blake? You seem personally invested." Marin forced a neutral expression. "Every 5-year-old affects me. That's why I chose pediatrics." "Right." Harrison didn't look entirely convinced. "I'll authorize the surgery. When do you want to do it?" "Today. The sooner the better." "Today?" "Blake, that requires planning, preparation." "I can be ready in 2 hours. I've already studied the images and planned the approach." "Are you sure?" Marin looked at the images one last time. In her mind, she saw Sadie laughing the night before, asking about her mother. "Absolutely. Operating room 2, at 9. When Harrison left, Marin allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. Her hands trembled slightly as she organized the images. In a few hours, her daughter's life would literally be in her hands, and no one at the hospital knew the truth. By 7:30, she went to Sadie's room. The girl was awake, playing with a teddy bear Daddy had brought from home. "Dr. Marin." Sadie smiled at the sight of her. "You came early." "I promised I would." Marin moved closer to the bed. "How did you sleep?" "Well, I dreamed about the princess from the story you told." "That's good. How are you feeling?" "A little dizzy still. And my head hurts. Marin checked Sadie's vitals, noting a slight increase in intracranial pressure. She couldn't wait any longer. "Sadie, I need to talk with you and your father about the tests. Are you going to tell me what they found?" "We are." Callum approached, clearly tense. "What did the images show?" Marin took a deep breath. "Sadie has a condition called an arteriovenous malformation. It's when some blood vessels in her brain connect incorrectly." "Is it serious?" Callum asked. "It can be. It's causing pressure in her brain, so that's why she passed out." "How do you treat it?" Marin looked at Sadie, then at Callum. "Surgery." The silence that followed was deafening. Callum turned pale. "Surgery? In the brain? It's the only way to fix this." "What kind of surgery?" Sadie asked, surprisingly calm. "We'll make small openings to repair the misconnected vessels." "Will it hurt?" "You'll be asleep. You won't feel anything." "And after, will I be okay?" Marin hesitated. Honesty was important, but she didn't want to scare a 5-year-old. "We'll do everything we can to make you okay." Callum pulled her aside. "What are the risks?" he asked quietly. "It's complex. There are risks of bleeding, damage to nearby tissue. In plain English, paralysis, speech problems, or," she couldn't finish the phrase, "or death." "Callum, I will do everything." "You," he interrupted. "You're going to operate." "I'm the most qualified available." "No." Callum shook his head. "I don't accept that." "Why not?" "Because you can't be objective. There's history between us. My personal history won't interfere with my medical competence." "How can you be sure?" Marin looked through the door at Sadie, playing innocently. "Because it's her. Because I can't fail. Exactly why you shouldn't be the one." "Callum, I performed dozens of these surgeries. I'm a specialist. And the other surgeons in the hospital. The best neurosurgeon is on vacation. The others don't have enough experience with complex pediatric cases." Callum ran his hands through his hair, clearly desperate. "Can't we wait until he returns?" "No, the swelling is increasing. Every hour we wait is more dangerous." "Damn!" Callum leaned against the wall. "I know it's scary." "Scary?" He laughed bitterly. "She's my daughter, my only daughter. And that's exactly why I will do everything right." Callum studied her for a long moment. "When?" "Today. At 9. Today. In 2 hours. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes." Callum went to the bathroom, and Marin heard muffled sobs. Her heart ached for him. When he emerged, his eyes were red but determined. "All right, but I want another doctor assisting. Dr. Harrison will be there." They returned to Sadie's side, where the girl watched them with focus. "Did you decide?" she asked. "We did." Callum sat on the edge of the bed. "You're going to have surgery." "When?" "This morning." Sadie nodded, processing the information with impressive maturity. "Will I be okay?" Callum looked at Marin, then back at his daughter. "Dr. Marin will do everything, so you will be." "And if I'm not?" The direct question broke both adults' hearts. "Don't think like that," Callum said. "Think about getting better and going home to play with Max." Over the next hour, the medical team prepared Sadie for surgery. Marin explained each step using simple but honest language. "Dr. Marin," Sadie asked as they were about to take her to the OR. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Do you promise you'll take good care of me?" The simple question carried so much weight that Marin had to fight back tears. "I promise, with my life." Sadie hugged Daddy, then reached out to Marin. Without thinking, Marin hugged her too. "I'll see you when I wake up," Sadie said. "You will." As they wheeled Sadie away, Callum and Marin were left alone in the hallway. "Blake," a voice called from behind them. It was Dr. Harrison, his expression serious. "I need to talk with you, privately." Marin followed him into an empty room. Harrison closed the door. "I just found out something about this case." Marin's heart raced. "What is it?" "The mother's name on the patient's birth certificate, Marin Blake." The silence stretched out. Marin felt as if the floor had vanished. "It's you, isn't it? You're her mother." Marin closed her eyes. "Yes." "Damn, Blake. You can't operate on your own daughter." It's unethical, dangerous. It's her best chance. Not when the surgeon is emotionally compromised. I'm not compromised. I'm motivated. Harrison, there's no time. There's no one else with enough experience. Harrison struggled with the decision, clearly torn between protocol and medical necessity. If I allow this, you could lose your medical license. If I don't do this, I might lose my daughter. The words came raw, honest. Harrison studied her for a long moment. No one else can know. No one will know. And I will be by your side every second. When they left the room, they found Callum waiting in the hallway. What was that about? He asked. Surgery details, Marin lied. But Callum had seen both of their expressions. Something else you're not telling me. Marin and Harrison exchanged looks. Really? Callum insisted. Callum, Marin began. Dr. Harrison found out I'm Sadie's mother. Callum was in shock for a few seconds, then exploded. You lied again. You are going to open our daughter's head and hide this from everyone. The hospital doesn't know, but I know I'm the most qualified, and I won't let her be at risk with someone else. There's no one else? No one with my experience. Callum ran his hands through his hair, desperate. This is madness. You can't operate on your own daughter. I can and I will. And if something goes wrong, how will you live with yourself? How would I live if I don't try and something happens to her? His words came raw. Marin could see the internal struggle in him, fear, anger, but also knowing maybe there was no choice. Shit, he said finally. Callum, no. He raised a hand. I don't want to hear reasons. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, then opened them again. Then save my daughter. His voice broke on the last word. Marin nodded, feeling the weight of all responsibilities settle on her shoulders. In 30 minutes, her daughter's life would be in her hands. The daughter she had abandoned 5 years ago, who had grown up without her, who now desperately needed her not to fail. The bright, cold lights of the OR bathed everything in white. Marin stood at the scrub sink, scrubbing her hands with the precision of someone who had done this thousands of times. Every movement was automatic, but her heart pounded uncontrollably. Dr. Blake? The scrub nurse approached. Everything's ready. Marin nodded, towel drying her hands mechanically. Through the glass door, she could see Sadie already asleep on the operating table, small and fragile under the sterile drapes. Only her head was exposed, hair shaved back revealing pale skin. Let's begin, she said, entering the room. The team was positioned around the table. Dr. Harrison watched closely, as promised. The anesthesiologist monitored vital signs. 2 nurses arranged instruments with silent efficiency. Marin approached the table and looked at Sadie. Sleeping, she looked even smaller, almost lost among medical equipment. For a moment, the doctor saw not a patient, but her daughter. The baby she had carried for 9 months, who had been born in her hands, who she had abandoned in a decision that haunted her for 5 years. Doctor, the nurse offered surgical gloves. Marin shook her head, pushing aside those memories. Now was just the doctor. She had to be. Scalpel. The first incision was perfect. Her hand didn't shake or hesitate. Years of training took over, guiding each movement. She worked layer by layer, exposing the skull, preparing to access the brain. Blood pressure stable, the anesthesiologist reported. Good, Marin replied, focused. Let's open the cranium. The sound of the bone saw filled the room. Marin worked with millimeter precision, creating a window in Sadie's skull. When the brain was finally exposed, everyone could see the malformation. My God, one nurse whispered. It was even worse than the images had shown. The tangle of abnormal vessels pulsed dangerously, swollen and red. A bit more pressure and it would have ruptured. We arrived just in time, Harrison murmured. Marin studied the malformation, planning each step. It would be a delicate, precise job. An error of a few millimeters could leave Sadie paralyzed or worse. Surgical microscope. The equipment was positioned, and Marin adjusted the focus. Now she could see every vessel, every anomalous connection. She took a deep breath and began. The first vessel was isolated with extreme care. Marin used tiny clips to interrupt the blood flow, testing the tissue's reaction around it. Everything was normal. As she worked, memories began flooding her mind. The birth, the unending pain, Callum holding her hand, whispering encouragement, and then the cry. Sadie's first cry, loud and strong, announcing her arrival into the world. "Second vessel isolated," she announced, her voice steady. Sadie in her arms for the first time. So small, so perfect, eyes closed, tiny fists clenched, and that overwhelming love she hadn't been prepared to feel. Intracranial pressure dropping, Harrison observed on the monitors. Sleepless nights, Sadie crying, and she didn't know what to do. Callum trying to help, but just as lost. The constant feeling of failing, of not being good enough to be a mother. Marin isolated the third vessel, the trickiest one. It was dangerously close to the speech area. Her hands moved with surgical precision, every action calculated. The residency she had abandoned when Sadie was born, the opportunities lost. The resentment growing each day, even though she knew it was unfair. The feeling of being trapped in a life she hadn't fully chosen. "Excellent work, Blake," Harrison murmured, impressed. The job offer in Boston. The chance to study with Dr. Mitchell, the top neurosurgeon in the country. The opportunity she had dreamed of her whole life. And the impossible decision, stay with Sadie or pursue her dreams. Marin worked on the fourth vessel, the most dangerous of all. It was entangled with vital arteries, requiring nearly supernatural precision. The night she made that decision, Sadie at 6 months, sleeping peacefully in her crib, Callum asleep beside her, exhausted after a day caring for both of them, and her awake, looking at that life she'd built and feeling suffocated. "Careful," Harrison warned. "You're too close to the middle cerebral artery." "I know," Marin replied, her voice tense. Her hands remained steady, but her mind was somewhere else. The morning she left, Sadie was only 6 months old. She left a letter for Callum, explaining she had to go, that it was temporary, that she would return. Lies she told herself to get out the door. The fifth vessel was isolated successfully. Only 2 remained, but they were the most complicated. The first months in Boston. The excitement of being back in school, using her brain for something beyond diapers and bottles. The constant guilt she tried to drown with more work. "Brain temperature stable," the anesthesiologist informed. The calls to Callum that became more and more rare. Excuses she made to avoid coming home for holidays. How easily she let Sadie become a distant memory. Marin reached the 6th vessel, located in an extremely sensitive area. A slight hesitation, and her hand trembled faintly. "Blake?" Harrison noticed. "I'm fine," she lied, composing herself. She couldn't fail now, not with Sadie. The news that Callum had filed for divorce. How easily she signed the papers, agreeing he'd have full custody of Sadie. The lie she told herself that it was better that way. The 6th vessel was isolated, but Marin could feel sweat trickling down her forehead. The nurse gently wiped it away without interrupting the work. The years that passed, the promotions, the professional recognition, the life she built far from Callum and Sadie, and the constant emptiness that no achievement could fill. She got to the final vessel, the most dangerous of all. It was deeply entwined with brain tissue, requiring an almost impossible approach. The decision to return to her hometown 3 years ago. The lie she told herself that it was only for a better job opportunity, and not because she was desperate to be near Sadie again. "This one's critical," Harrison murmured, studying the images on the monitor. Marin took a deep breath. In her mind, she saw Sadie in the hospital, smiling at her, asking if she had kids and saying she liked her. "This is the only chance life gave me to fix something," she whispered to herself. Her hands moved with a precision that transcended technique. It was as if every fiber of her being was focused on this moment, this chance to do something right after so many mistakes. The last clip was placed. The final anomalous vessel was isolated. The malformation was completely removed. Intracranial pressure normalizing, the anesthesiologist announced, relief in his voice. Bleeding controlled. One of the nurses confirmed. Neurological signs stable. Harrison checked the monitors. Marin looked at Sadie's brain. now free of the malformation that threatened her life. The tissue was pink and healthy, pulsing softly with each heartbeat. "Let's close," she said, her voice slightly hoarse. The closure process was meticulous. Layer by layer, Marin reconstructed everything she had opened. The bone flap was repositioned, the skin sutured with nearly invisible stitches. "Surgery complete," she announced finally. 2 hours and 43 minutes. The room burst into contained applause. It was a complete success, one of the most complex procedures any of them had witnessed. "Excellent work, Blake," Harrison said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Couldn't have gone better." Marin nodded but couldn't smile. She was exhausted, emotionally and physically. As the team prepared Sadie for transfer to recovery, she stepped away. I'm going to clean up," she murmured, leaving the room. In the locker room, finally alone, Marin let herself cry. Tears of relief, guilt and love pent up for 5 years. She had saved Sadie. Her daughter was alive and well. But now came the hardest part. Now she would have to face the consequences of all she had done and left undone. An hour later, Sadie was moved to the recovery unit. Marin watched from a distance as Callum rushed to the bedside, holding his daughter's hand and whispering words of love. She wanted to go closer, but fear paralyzed her. Fear of what Sadie would think when she learned the truth. Fear that Callum would throw her out. Fear of facing the consequences of her own choices. So she stayed in the hallway, watching through the glass door like a stranger in the life she had abandoned. 2 hours later, Sadie began to wake up. Marin saw when the girl's eyes opened, confused but alert. She saw Sadie recognize her father and offer a faint smile. "Daddy?" Sadie's voice was weak but clear. "I'm here, sweetheart. It's okay. You're fine. It hurts a little. I know, but it'll pass. The doctor said it all went perfectly." Sadie looked around the room, searching. "Is Dr. Marin still here?" Callum looked toward the door, seeing Marin standing in the hallway. "She's just outside. Do you want me to call her?" "I do." Callum rose and walked to the door. "She wants to talk to you," he said simply. Marin hesitated a moment, then entered the room slowly. Sadie smiled when she saw her, a weak but genuine smile. "Hi, Dr. Marin." "Hi, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Tired and a little confused, but better." Marin moved closer to the bed, keeping a respectful distance. "The surgery went very well. We managed to fix everything." "Thank you." Sadie reached out. "Can you come closer?" Marin looked at Callum, who nodded almost imperceptibly. She moved closer, and Sadie took her hand. "Your hands don't hurt," Sadie said, squeezing Marin's fingers. "I like you." The simple words struck Marin like lightning. She had to fight back tears, biting her lip to keep control. "I like you a lot too, Sadie. Will you keep taking care of me?" Marin looked at Callum again, seeking permission. He said nothing, but he did not refuse. "I will take care of you while you're in the hospital. And after?" The question hung in the air. Marin had no answer. She didn't know if she would be allowed to be part of Sadie's life after all this was over. "We'll see how you recover first," she said diplomatically. Sadie seemed to accept the answer. Her eyes were growing heavy again, the medication taking effect. "Dr. Marin?" "Yes? Thank you for saving me." Marin squeezed the small hand in hers. "You don't need to thank me. It was a privilege." Sadie smiled once more before closing her eyes, still holding Marin's hand. For a few minutes, the three of them remained in silence, united by that fragile moment of peace. When Sadie fell into a deep sleep, Marin tried to let go of her hand, but the girl held on tighter, even in her dreams, as if she instinctively knew she needed that connection. Marin looked at Callum, who watched the scene with an unreadable expression. "She's okay," Marin whispered. "She'll recover completely." "Thank you," Callum said simply. It was the first sincere word of gratitude he had spoken to her in 5 years, and perhaps it would be the last for a long time, because Marin knew the hardest part was yet to come. The surgery had been just the beginning. 3 days passed since the surgery. 3 days of slow but steady recovery, Stable vitals. Sadie showing she would return to being the smart, lively girl she always was. Marin had been there for each step, each small improvement, each smile that indicated her daughter was truly okay. But it was also 3 days of internal torment. Every time Sadie called her Dr. Marin, every time she spoke about her distant mother with a mix of curiosity and resignation, was like a knife to Marin's heart. The lie was becoming unbearable. On Thursday morning, Marin finally found the courage. Sadie was sitting on the bed, playing with puzzles that a nurse had brought. The bandage on her head was smaller now, and some hair was already growing around the scar that would soon be just a thin line. "Good morning, sweetheart." Marin entered the room with a forced smile. "Dr. Marin." Sadie dropped her puzzle and reached out for a hug. It was a gesture that had become routine these past days, and it always made Marin's heart race. "How are you feeling today?" "Much better. My headache is almost gone, and I ate everything at breakfast." "That's great." Marin sat in the chair next to the bed. "Where's your daddy?" "He went to buy some things for me. He said he'll be back in an hour." Marin nodded. Maybe it was better this way. Maybe it would be easier to talk with Sadie alone first. "Sadie, can I talk to you about something important?" "Sure." Sadie turned her whole body toward her, giving full attention. "Is it about when I go home?" "Not exactly." Marin took a deep breath. "It's about something I should have told you before." Something in Marin's tone made Sadie frown. "What kind of thing?" Marin looked at her hands, searching for the right words. How to explain 5 years of absence to a 5-year-old, how to justify the unjustifiable. "Remember when you asked me if I had children?" "I remember. You said you'd like to have one more than anything." "Yes." Marin lifted her eyes to meet Sadie's. "But I didn't tell the whole truth." "How come?" I have a daughter." "I had a daughter." Sadie tilted her head, confused. "Where is she?" "She's right here, in this room." The confusion on Sadie's face deepened for a few seconds. Marin saw the exact moment understanding began forming in the girl's eyes. "No." Sadie shook her head slowly. "No, no, no. Sadie, you're saying that..." Sadie's voice grew small, scared. "That you are..." "I'm more than your doctor. I'm your mother." The words came out simple, direct, but laden with 5 years of guilt and regret. Marin saw them hit Sadie like a physical blow. The girl went pale instantly, her eyes widening in shock. "No," Sadie whispered. "It can't be. Sadie, I know it's hard to understand." "No!" Sadie's voice jumped an octave. "You can't be my mother." "Why not?" "Because my mommy had to go away to work. Daddy said she loved me but had to leave." Marin felt tears welling as the straightforward accusation cut to the core. "And that was true. I had to go work, and I loved you." "I love you. Then why didn't you come back?" The simple, direct question cut like a blade. Marin had no answer that made sense to a 5-year-old. She didn't have an answer that made sense to herself. "It's complicated, Sadie." "Complicated how?" "I made wrong choices. Choices that hurt you and your father." Sadie studied her for a long moment, and Marin could see the little girl's mind processing information, connecting dots. "You lied." Sadie's voice was low now, but there was something worse than anger in it. "You took care of me all these days, hiding who you were. I didn't know how to tell you." "You lied," Sadie repeated, louder now. "You pretended to be just my doctor when you were my mother." "No." Sadie turned away, refusing to look at Marin. "You aren't my mother. Mothers don't abandon their kids." The accusation hit Marin like a physical strike, because it was true. It was exactly what she had done. "Sadie, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Sadie faced back, tears in her eyes now. "How you left me as a baby. How you left me with Daddy. How you never, ever came back." "I did come back. I'm here now. Only because I got sick. If I hadn't gotten sick, you never would have seen me again." The observation was devastatingly precise. Marin couldn't deny it. "Maybe you're right. Then why are you telling me this now? Why didn't you keep pretending to be just the doctor?" Marin wiped away the tears beginning to fall. Because I couldn't lie anymore. Because these last days with you were the best days of my life in 5 years. Because I love you, Sadie, and I wanted you to know. If you loved me, you wouldn't have left. The girl's simple, relentless logic left Marin without words. You're right. Then why did you go? Because I was young, scared, and thought it would be better for you if I wasn't in the way. Daddy said you went to work. I did, but it wasn't just work. It was running away. Running away from me. Running away from responsibility. Running away from the fear of not being good enough for you. Sadie absorbed that for a moment. And now? Marin looked at Sadie's face, seeing the anger, the confusion, the pain. Now I know you hate me, and I understand why. Sadie was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was controlled, cold in a way that was terrifying in such a young child. You saved my life. Yes. You held my life in your hands. Yes. And I didn't even know who you were. I didn't know. That's awful. Marin nodded, because it was awful. It was the worst thing she had ever done. If you knew who I was, would you have let another doctor operate? The question caught Marin by surprise. I don't know. Maybe? Why? Because maybe you wouldn't want me touching you. Maybe you'd rather die than let me save you. Maybe I would. The words landed like a punch. Marin felt as if she'd been hit in the stomach. Sadie, you lied about who you were. You lied about why you were taking care of me. You made me like you when you didn't deserve it. I deserve that you hate me. I don't hate you, Sadie said, and there was something worse than hatred in her voice. I don't feel anything for you. You're a stranger who happened to give birth to me. The contempt in a 5-year-old's voice was devastating. Marin had to hold onto the chair to keep from collapsing. Sadie, please, go away. Sadie turned her face to the wall. Go away and leave me alone. But I can explain. Explain what? How you abandoned me. How you lied. How you pretended to care about me when you were just feeling guilty. I care about you more than anything. Then why did you leave? Because I was young and stupid and... Now, you're not young and stupid anymore. Or you only came back because I almost died. Marin had no answer, because the truth was, Sadie was right. If it hadn't been for her illness, perhaps she'd never have found the courage to come back. Go away. Sadie turned her face to the wall. Go away and leave me alone. Sadie, please, go away! Sadie screamed, and the outburst echoed down the hallway. Marin heard footsteps rushing toward the room. Sadie, what? A nurse burst in. I want her out. Sadie pointed at Marin without turning. I want her to go away and never come back. The nurse looked from Sadie to Marin, confused. Dr. Blake, what happened? Marin stood at the door, legs shaking. I think it's best if I go. Sadie, sweetheart, what's wrong? The nurse approached the bed. She lied, Sadie yelled, tears finally spilling. She lied about who she was. She lied about everything. Marin stopped at the door, looking back one last time. Sadie was turned to the wall, shoulders shaking with sobs. Sadie! She tried for a final plea. Go away! Sadie screamed again. Marin left the room in tears, passing nurses rushing toward the commotion. She could barely see through her tears, could barely breathe. In the hallway, she collided with Callum as who was returning with bags of groceries. Marin. What? He heard Sadie's cries and dropped the bags. What did you do? I told her. Told her what? Who I am. Callum closed his eyes, understanding immediately. Damn it, Marin. Why now? Because I couldn't lie anymore. And now she's like that. They could hear Sadie crying inside and the nurse trying to comfort her. I need to get to her, Callum said. Callum, No. He raised his hand. Not now. She needs me now. Marin nodded and moved away, walking down the hallway like a zombie. She left the hospital and sat on a bench outside, finally letting her tears fall uncontrollably. She had lost everything. The daughter who barely knew her hated her. The man she once loved wouldn't even look at her. And she had done it all alone, by her own choices. She stayed there for hours, silently crying, watching people enter and exit the hospital. Happy families, worried families, people living their normal lives while her world collapsed. When the sun began to set, Callum appeared. He sat on the bench beside her but kept a distance. "How is she?" Marin asked in a hoarse voice. "Devastated, confused, angry. And you?" "Too." They were silent for a few minutes. "You saved her life," Callum said finally, "but maybe you lost everything." The observation stung, but it was fair. "If that's the price, I'll pay it," Marin said, "but I won't stop waiting." "Waiting for what?" "That she forgives me, that she gives me a chance, that one day she understands. She's 5 years old, Marin. She doesn't understand why her mother left, and I don't know how to explain it to her." "Then don't explain. Let her grow up and decide for herself. What if she never wants to see you again?" The question was like a dagger, but Marin had already considered that possibility. "Then at least I'll know she's alive to make that decision." Callum looked at her for the first time since he sat down. "You really love her, don't you? More than my own life. Then why?" "Because I was young, selfish, and didn't understand what it meant to love someone more than myself. Now I do. Too late, but I do." Callum nodded slowly. "She doesn't want to see you. She said if you try to enter the room again, she'll run away from the hospital." "I understand. Probably better if you stay away for now." "I will, but—" Marin took a piece of paper and a pen from her bag. She wrote something quickly and handed it to Callum. "Can you give this to her?" "When you think she's ready." Callum read the note. "I'll be here when you want to know who I am without pain." "No signature?" he asked. "She'll know whose it is." Callum folded the paper and put it in his pocket. "I don't know when that will be. Could be years. I'll wait." "And if she's never ready?" Marin looked at the hospital, where her daughter was recovering, hating her. "Then at least I'll know she's okay. And sometimes, when you love someone, that has to be enough." Callum stood to leave the bench, then paused. "Marin." "Yes." "Thank you for saving her. Thank you for raising her so well." Callum nodded and went back into the hospital. Marin remained on the bench until it was completely dark, staring at the lit windows, knowing that somewhere inside was the daughter who hated her, but who was alive. And for now, that had to be enough. 5 days passed since the revelation. 5 days of absolute silence from room 314. Marin had respected Sadie's request and kept her distance but couldn't leave the hospital. She spent her days treating other patients, trying to keep busy, but always found an excuse to pass by the pediatric corridor. She never entered the room, never approached close enough to be seen. She only walked slowly down the hallway, hoping to catch a glimpse of Sadie through the slightly open door, the sound of her voice, any sign that her daughter was okay. The nurses felt sorry for her. Marin saw it in their eyes, in the way they spoke quietly when she passed. The story had spread around the hospital. Not the details, but enough for everyone to know Dr. Blake was going through something difficult. It was Tuesday morning when Callum found her in the cafeteria. Marin was sitting alone at a corner table, picking at a salad she didn't intend to eat. "May I sit?" he asked. Marin looked up, surprised. It was the first time they spoke since the bench conversation. "Sure." Callum sat, looking tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and Marin realized the past days had been hard on him too. "How is she?" Marin asked, getting straight to the point. "Confused, angry, sad?" Callum sighed. "She asks a lot of questions I don't know how to answer." "What kind of questions?" "Why you left, if you loved her, if she did something wrong." Each question was a stab to Marin's heart. "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you were young and scared, that you loved us but didn't know how to handle responsibility. That she did nothing wrong. And she accepted it. She's smart. She understands more than she should for a 5-year-old. Callum paused. "She asked if you were still at the hospital." Marin leaned forward. "And I said yes, that you hadn't left this time." "How did she react?" "She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked if you were sad." "What did you say?" That you were very sad." They were silent for a few minutes. Marin played with her fork, trying to process the information. "Callum, She wants to see you. The words came quickly, interrupting what Marin was about to say. She almost dropped her fork. What? She asked if you could visit. Just for a few minutes. Marin's heart leapt. When? Now, if you want. But she made some conditions. What conditions? That you don't try to hug her, that you don't talk about the past, that you accept she's still angry. Marin nodded quickly. Of course. Anything. And that you understand this doesn't mean she forgives you. I understand. Callum studied her for a moment. She's just a child, Marin. Don't push. I won't push. I promise. They rose and walked in silence to the room. In the hallway, Marin's legs trembled, her hands shook slightly. Breathe, Callum said quietly. She can feel if you're nervous. Marin took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself. When they reached the door, Callum entered first. Sadie, Dr. Marin is here. You can come in. Sadie's voice was low, formal. Marin entered slowly. Sadie sat on the bed, playing with a puzzle. She looked up when Marin came in, but did not smile. Her expression was cautious, guarded. Hi, Marin said softly. Hi. Silence stretched out. Marin stood near the door, not wanting to step closer without permission. Sadie returned her attention to the puzzle. How are you feeling? Marin asked. Better. The headache is almost gone. That's good. More silence. Marin desperately looked for something to say, some way to break the tension. What puzzle is that? A castle. Sadie didn't look up. It has 100 pieces. That's a lot for someone your age. I'm good with puzzles. I can imagine. Sadie finally looked at her. Daddy said you're still at the hospital. I am. Why not leave? Marin was caught off guard by the direct question. Because I didn't want to go. Why not? Because you're here. Sadie considered that. You won't leave again. I won't if you don't want me to. And if I do. The question hurt, but Marin kept her voice calm. Then I will. Just like that. It wouldn't be easy. It would be the hardest thing I've ever done. But if that's what you wanted, I would do it. Sadie studied Marin's face, as if searching for lies. You lied before. I lied. How do I know you're not lying now? You don't. You'll have to trust me, or not. The brutal honesty seemed to surprise Sadie. You saved my life, she said finally. I did. Why? Because I'm a doctor, and because what? Because I love you, even if you don't believe it. Sadie turned her attention back to the puzzle. Daddy said you loved me when you left too. I did. Then why did you go? Because I was afraid. Because I was young and didn't know how to be a mother. And now you do. Marin hesitated. I'm not sure, but I want to learn. With me. If you'll let me. Sadie fit a puzzle piece in place a bit too forcefully. I don't know if I want to give you that chance. I understand. You hurt my daddy. I hurt him. And you hurt me too. I hurt you. Even without you remembering. How do you know you won't do it again? I don't know. I only know I'll try not to. Sadie paused in her puzzle and looked directly at Marin. Thank you for saving me. The words were simple but loaded with meaning. Marin felt tears well up again. You're welcome. I still don't want to call you Mom. That's fine. I'll be whatever you want me to be. Can you call me Sadie? I can call you whatever you want me to call you. Sadie is fine. Then, Sadie. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Sadie went back to her puzzle, and Marin simply watched her, grateful to be in the same space as her daughter without screams or tears. You can sit down, Sadie said without looking up. Where? In the chair. Marin moved slowly to the chair next to the bed and sat. She was close enough to see the puzzle details, but far enough that Sadie wouldn't feel invaded. That's a beautiful castle, Marin commented. It's just like the one from the story you told, about the brave princess. Marin remembered the night she'd told the story, before the surgery. You remembered? I remember a lot of things, good or bad. Both. Sadie worked on the puzzle for a few more minutes. Then, without warning, She slid a small teddy bear toward Marin. "Can you hold him?" Marin looked at the bear, then at Sadie. "Are you sure?" "Yes, hold him." Marin picked up the bear carefully, as if it were made of crystal. "What's his name?" "Mr. Teddy. I know it's a baby name, but I like it." "That's a perfect name." Sadie continued with the puzzle, but Marin noticed her glancing at the bear to make sure Marin was still holding it. "You can visit again," Sadie said suddenly. "Can I?" "If you want, but not every day. When would you like me to come?" "I don't know yet. I'll think about it." "All right. And you can't stay too long." "How long can I stay? Until I get tired of you." Marin smiled slightly. "That seems fair. And you can't try to hug me." "I won't try. Unless I ask." "Unless you ask." Sadie nodded, satisfied with the terms. "You can give Mr. Teddy back now." Marin handed the bear back. Sadie hugged it to her chest. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what? For not trying to hug me, for not crying, for not pretending everything is okay." "Nothing is okay." "No, but maybe it can be." It was a small, fragile opening, but it was an opening. Marin felt a flicker of hope kindle in her chest. "Maybe it can." She agreed. Callum, who had stayed quietly in the corner of the room, came forward. "Sadie, are you getting tired?" "A little." Marin stood immediately. "I'll let you rest." "Dr. Marin?" Sadie called as she approached the door. "Yes? Can you come tomorrow, just for a little while?" Marin's heart jumped. "If you want me to come." "I want you to." "Then I'll come." Sadie nodded and settled into bed, hugging Mr. Teddy. In the hallway, Callum and Marin walked in silence until they reached the elevator. "How was it?" Callum asked. "Better than I expected." "She liked you from day one." "That didn't change, even with all the confusion. She gave me the teddy bear to hold. That's her special teddy. She doesn't let just anyone touch it." Marin felt tears fill her eyes again. "A beginning?" Callum nodded. "A beginning." The elevator doors opened and Marin stepped inside. When they closed, she finally allowed herself to smile. It was just a small step, but after 5 days of total rejection, it felt like a miracle. Sadie had given her a chance, small, conditional, fragile, but a chance nonetheless. And this time, Marin was determined not to waste it. 2 weeks passed since Sadie was discharged. 2 weeks of careful, short visits to her home, hesitant conversations about puzzles and storybooks, small gestures slowly chipping away at the ice between mother and daughter. Marin had learned to navigate this new territory with extreme caution. Each visit was scheduled with Callum, each moment timed so as not to tire Sadie, each word weighed before being spoken. It was a delicate dance, and she knew one misstep could destroy the fragile progress they had made. It was Saturday morning when Marin's phone rang. She was making breakfast in her empty apartment when she saw Callum's name on the screen. "Hello?" "Hi, Marin. It's Callum." "Hi, how's Sadie?" "She's good. Actually, very good." There was a pause. "Listen, I know this might sound strange, but would you like to come over for coffee today?" Marin almost dropped the cup she was holding. "At home?" "Yes. Sadie asked if you could come. She said she wants to show you her room." She wants to show me her room. "And meet Max. Apparently she's been talking about you to him." Marin felt her heart pound. In all the hospital visits, Sadie had kept a respectful distance. Inviting her to her home was a huge step. "Are you sure she wants this?" "She asked 3 times if I'd called you yet." "And you? Are you comfortable with that?" Callum hesitated. "I'm trying to be... for her sake." "Callum, if you're not comfortable..." "It's not about me, Marin. It's about her. And she's ready for this step." Marin looked at her reflection in the kitchen window, seeing a woman both anxious and hopeful she barely recognized. "What time?" "Whenever you want. We'll be home all day." "Can I come in an hour?" "Perfect. You remember the address?" "I remember." Of course she did. She had driven by their house dozens of times in the last 3 years, just to see it from afar, to imagine what Sadie's life was like inside. An hour later, Marin stood in front of the house where her daughter had grown up without her. It was a friendly 2-story home with a well-kept garden and a white picket fence. Toys were scattered in the yard, and a doghouse occupied one corner. She took a deep breath and rang the bell. Steps approached quickly, and the door opened to reveal Sadie. She was wearing a yellow dress with flowers, and her hair had grown enough to fully conceal her surgical scar. "Hi," Sadie said, more shy than Marin had seen recently. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "Good." Sadie glanced back, then back at Marin. "Do you want to come in?" "If you want me to come in." Sadie nodded and stepped aside. Marin entered slowly, taking in everything around her. The house felt cozy, full of photos of Sadie at various ages, children's drawings stuck to the fridge, a sense of home Marin had never managed to create in her own apartment. "Marin." Callum appeared from the kitchen, drying his hands on a dish towel. "Glad you came. Thank you for inviting me." A large golden retriever bounded in, stopping abruptly when he saw Marin. He sniffed her cautiously, then wagged his tail. "That's Max." Sadie crouched beside the dog. "Max, this is Dr. Marin." Max approached Marin, who extended her hand for him to sniff. "He's gorgeous. He likes you." Sadie observed the dog licking Marin's hand. "He doesn't like everyone." "I'm privileged then." "Yeah." Callum watched the interaction with a careful expression. "Coffee," he offered. "I'd love that." They moved into the kitchen, and Marin noticed how everything was designed for a child. Stools for Sadie to reach the counter, drawings on the fridge, a special corner with books and puzzles. "Sit here." Sadie pulled a chair for Marin. "I helped Dad with the coffee." Marin sat watching father and daughter work together. There was a synchronicity between them, a familiarity that spoke of years of shared routines. Callum lowered the mugs. Sadie fetched sugar. He brewed the coffee. She arranged cookies on a plate. "Sadie makes the best chocolate chip cookies," Callum commented. "I help," Sadie corrected him. "Daddy makes the dough. I put in the chocolate chips." "Most important part," Marin said. "That's what I always say." When the coffee was ready, they sat at the table. Sadie sat between Callum and Marin, but leaned closer to her father. "How are you feeling?" Marin asked. "Headaches." "No, Dr. Harrison said I can go back to school next week." "That's great. You must miss your friends." "A little, but they can visit here too." They talked about trivial things, the school, Sadie's friends, weekend plans. Marin noticed how Sadie watched her carefully, as if still deciding what to think about her. "Do you want to see my room?" Sadie asked suddenly. "If you want to show me." "I do." Sadie stood up and Marin followed her up the stairs. The room was exactly what she'd expect for a 5-year-old. Pale pink walls, stuffed animals everywhere, a bookshelf loaded with books. "This is my room," Sadie said, clearly proud. "It's beautiful. Daddy let me pick the wall color." "You chose well." Sadie moved around the room, showing treasured items. A collection of seashells from the beach, a dollhouse Callum had built, a stack of books she was learning to read. "And this?" Marin pointed to a photo on the bedside table. "That's me as a baby." Marin stepped closer to the photo. It was Sadie at about 1 year old in Callum's arms. Both smiled at the camera. "You were a beautiful baby. Daddy says I was very small when I was born." "You were, but strong." Sadie studied the photo for a moment. "Were you there when I was born?" The question took Marin by surprise. They still hadn't talked about Sadie's early months. I held you when you were born." "What was I like?" "Perfect. Tiny, but perfect." "Were you happy?" "For the first time in my life, more happy than I'd ever been." "So why did you leave?" Marin sat on the edge of the bed. "Because I was scared. Scared I wouldn't be good enough for you." "But you were good at the hospital." "At the hospital, I knew what to do. With babies, I didn't know." Sadie absorbed that. "Daddy didn't know either at first, he told me." "Really?" "He says he burned porridge, put diapers on wrong, and once forgot me in the bathtub." Marin smiled. "All parents do that." "But he learned?" "He learned. And you didn't want to learn? The question was a gentle stab. Marin took a deep breath. I didn't have the patience to learn. I thought it would be easier to walk away. And was it? No. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Sadie nodded, as if that made sense to her. Can you stay for lunch? She changed the subject. If you two want me to. I want. They went downstairs, and Marin helped prepare lunch. It was strange being in that kitchen, participating in the domestic routine she had missed, but it was also comforting, like a glimpse of what could have been. During lunch, Sadie talked about school, her friends, and her upcoming birthday plans. Marin listened attentively, noting every detail. Can you come again? Sadie asked as they finished eating. I can. Only if you want me to. I want... When? Next Saturday? Marin looked at Callums, who nodded. I'd love to. Sadie didn't smile, but nodded satisfied. Can I show you my school drawings? Of course. Sadie ran to fetch a folder full of drawings. Over the next hour, she showed each one to Maureen, explaining the stories behind the colorful pictures. When it was time for Marin to leave, Sadie accompanied her to the door. Thanks for coming, she said formally. Thank you for having me. Bye. Bye, sweetheart. Marin walked away from the house with a lighter heart than she had felt in months. It was just a visit, but it had been normal, natural, like a family. The visits became regular. Every Saturday, Marin went over. Sometimes she stayed for lunch, sometimes just for coffee. Sadie always had something to show, a new drawing, a book she had read, a story from school. Slowly, the barriers fell. Sadie began sitting closer to Marin at the table. She started asking her to read stories. She began including her in playtime with Max. Callum watched everything with cautious respect. He never interfered, never forced closeness. But he also didn't discourage it when Sadie showed affection for Marin. 3 months after the first visit, something changed. Marin was helping Sadie with a particularly difficult puzzle when the girl asked, Can I call you Mom? Marin almost dropped the piece she was holding. You want to call me Mom? I think so. You're my mom, right? I am. And you won't leave again? I won't. Not if you don't want me to. Then I can call you Mom. You can call me whatever you want. Mom. Sadie tested the word. Mom, Marin. If that's how you want it. All right. It was that simple. No grand drama, no tears. Just a child deciding she was ready to accept her mother back into her life. The next month, Sadie began asking Marin to stay for dinner too, then to watch movies, then to help with bath time and tuck her in at night. Marin never asked for anything, never forced any situation. She let Sadie set the pace, respected every boundary, celebrated every small step forward. Callum watched the transformation with a mix of relief and bittersweetness. It was good to see Sadie happy, to see the family rebuilding. But it was also a constant reminder of what they had lost, the years they couldn't get back. One Friday night, 6 months after the first visit, Marin was helping tuck Sadie in when the girl made a remark that surprised her. Mom, Marin. Yes, sweetheart. You left once, but now it's you stayed. Marin paused, arranging stuffed animals. What do you mean? You could have left after I got better, but you stayed. Of course I stayed. Why? Because I love you, and because I want to be part of your life if you let me. Forever. Forever. Sadie nodded, satisfied. All right. But you have to promise one thing. What? If you get sad or scared again, you talk to me. Don't leave without telling me. The wisdom of a 5-year-old left Marin speechless for a moment. I promise. And if I get mad at you, you won't leave either. I won't leave. Even if you get very mad. Even if I scream. Even if you scream. All right then. Sadie settled into bed, hugging Mr. Teddy. Good night, Mom Marin. Good night, my sweetheart. Marin turned off the light and left the room, finding Callum waiting in the hallway. How was it? He asked. She called me Mom Marin. I heard. How do you feel about that? Callum considered the question. I feel at peace. For the first time in 5 years, our family makes sense again. They do. Marin nodded, looking at photos of Sadie scattered around the house. She's amazing. She is. And much of that is because of you too. Her intelligence, her determination, the way she processes emotions. She gets a lot from you too. The kindness, the patience, the capacity to forgive. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in thought. Marin? Yes. Welcome back. The words were simple but carried the weight of 5 years of pain, growth, and forgiveness. Marin felt tears fill her eyes. Thank you. For the first time in a long time, it feels like we're on the right path. It really does. And for the first time since she'd returned to town, Marin allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, they could truly rebuild what had been broken. It wouldn't be the same as before. It would be something new, something built on honesty and second chances. But it would be real, and it would be theirs. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.